Welcome, everyone, to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and on this podcast, I take a deep dive into the writing process behind some of the world's best songwriters. By way of background, I am a former English professor. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So this is a conversation about writing between two writers. My goal has always been to treat songwriters the same way that we treat prose writers, just as writers, plain and simple. So that's all we focus on. I don't care about tour stories, favorite bands, how bands get their name, favorite foods, anything like that. This is, again, a deep dive into the songwriting process with some of the world's best songwriters. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the pod, it is Nat and Alex Wolff. Their latest album is self-titled. It is out now. And let me just say this. The problem with doing a podcast is that you, and without posting any video, because I don't, is that you as a listener don't get a sense of the joy and the fun that some of these are. And I've done close to 500 at this point, 500 of these interviews. This could be the most fun I've ever had. This was a laugh fest with Nat and Alex. We had a blast. We really talked a lot about creativity in general. Both of them are obviously actors. We shared, finally, I got to share my love of the playwright Sam Shepard with someone. I wrote about Shepard for my dissertation, and they've acted in his plays and think he's one of the greatest writers, as do I. So check out Sam Shepard. But and I also want to say that towards the end, because they were in separate locations, Alex cut out, and we lost him for the last 5 or 10 minutes. So if you don't hear him, that is why. It's not that I cut out his part. And I wrote down the phrase artistic nutrients on my notebook, and I realized we talked a lot about, I think this is in one of them said, used the phrase artistic nutrients, the things that we do, the things that we keep, the things that we have to nourish us artistically and to make us the best version of an artist that we can be. And we talked a lot about what those artistic nutrients are. We talked about the subconscious and the role of creativity, how inhaling and exhaling music is key. I love that. They both come from artistic families and being around music and being around actors. And a lot of metaphors in this. We talked about baseball and Watergate and how acting makes them better lyricists. I think that's an important discussion to listen to, while how being an actor makes them better songwriters. And my quote of the day, possibly of the year, one of them I forgot, but you'll hear it, describes their latest album, jokingly, of course, as James Joyce meets Diplo. Wow. And I think it was Alex that talked about James Joyce and Portrait of the Artist and how he read that and how it influenced his songwriting. We went over a lot here. There's so much in this I didn't even put in here because you don't want to listen to hours and hours of these interviews, but we had an absolute blast. Nat and Alex, thank you very much for sharing your process with me and with you. And here's my interview with Nat and Alex Wolff. All right, Alex, let's start with you. And I think the question I always begin with is, do you think it's important to create in some fashion every day, no matter how bad it is, or do you feel like pushing things can make things derivative?
That's a good question. I mean, I definitely work more like the former. I try to create every day, but I not every day, because then it almost makes I feel like I'm kind of like I'm really in some ways undisciplined. Like I'm very much ADD and kind of want to like find anything else but to like kind of work, quote unquote. But I find that it's what I want to do, is go to music. So I think that I end up writing songs or working on, lyrics or whatever every day. But the second I frame it like that, some people love to get up with a cup of coffee and start writing, and I'm the fucking opposite. Like if I that gives me so much anxiety, the idea of doing it because of that. Instead, I feel that I have to trick myself into, like I always, the old thing about the wife and the mistress of I like the thing that's my wife, the song that you're supposed to be working on, then you try to write another song,
Mhm.
and that becomes the song that's
Mhm.
fucking 9 times out of 10 way better for me. And then the wife song is like, stuff strains to rhyme and is just like, I don't know, like something is like overly constructed about it. So I have just a very undisciplined technique, but at the same time, you have to get around to finish songs. And so usually what I try to do is leave a song alone when you start really banging your head against the wall, and then you come back to it and you go to something else, because then sooner or later that song's going to become the wife and the other's going to be the mistress, so you have to go back to that. But really, Nat and I have such an excess of energy and inspiration and anxiety and drive and just so much. There's a lot of energy. The second I wake up is anxiety and joy and like just a lot. And so I think a good place to put it is art, no matter what it is. But I think, yeah, trying to create every day as like a rule fails with me within the first, 2 hours. I'm like, "Fuck this. I'm gonna go, play, a game on my phone," and then suddenly when I'm playing a game on my phone, I'm like, "Oh, it's interesting. Maybe let me go and work on it."
All right, one follow-up to that is how do you know to go back to that song that you were stuck on? Is there like a eureka moment, or do you go, "You know what, I should probably look at this again"?
Well, for me, it is usually unfortunate whether you wanna listen to that voice in your head or not, usually there's a voice in me that goes, this song is better," like, "This song's better." But sometimes you gotta just, like, hammer it out with that other whatever good one, but sometimes Nat and I, you know, have the experience where you'll be working on a song for a week, right? And you're working everything out and you go, 2 lyrics from this or actually no. You work on a song for a week, you'll put it aside, then something will come to you and you'll go, "Let me take those 2 lyrics that work that I was holding on to in that other song, and let me put it in this better song and see, if they fit or they mean something." Yeah, but
Or it's
the
that
process changes all the time.
or it's that classic story of you're in the studio and you're working on a song that's not really coming, um, and it feels like a slog and everybody's tired, especially if it's a full band. And then you say, let's all jam. And then everybody starts playing, and suddenly something so much more
Interesting.
interesting comes out, even though it has the tendrils of the previous song. It ends up being this kind of much more immediate thing. I think. Uh, yeah, I think it's we both tend to fall on the in the scale of, chaotic to scheduled. It's just we're both on the chaotic creativity. But I definitely noticed that the less the less output I have, like the less creative I'm being, the more I fall into bad habits, and so I do
As a
think it's
person.
yeah, as a human being, like, in terms of, that I do feel like being creative gives me the like sometimes it's like how they say if you need something done, give it to a busy person. I feel like, if I'm in a time of being creative, I can almost balance a million things. Where if I'm in a moment of kind of stuckness, it's almost like anything is hard to get out. Yeah.
Yep.
But Nat, do you want to be more do you wish you could be like an everyday writer, or do you feel like, "You know what, my personality just wouldn't fit that"?
I kind of do. I kind of think I am an everyday writer. I just
Me too.
tend to scatter it through different mediums. So, it's like um, I write. I try to write. I mean, I usually wake up in the morning and I write an idea of poetry. But it's not even to be good. It's to kind of like start the day off in a creative way. And And then I am constantly, writing scripts, and then I kind of, there's a way where you can read passively, but then there's this other way that I can read, which is not how I always read, but sometimes I can read in a way that's sort of um, like aggressive or something, in a way where it's almost like I know that it's like healthy food that I'm feeding myself. But my dad always used to talk about with jazz of like inhaling and exhaling, that he would have these periods of inhaling tons and tons of music. And that's the same as writing music, because then at a certain point it all comes through. But it is true that if you write every single day, the majority of that is not going to be good. It's just, you know,
But you have to write the bad stuff to get to the good. I mean,
totally.
I'm okay with writing the bad stuff because hopefully the good stuff will happen eventually. I've never
Totally.
started with the good stuff.
Yeah, ever.
But sometimes you do. I mean, it's very unpredictable. Like, again, like Leonard Cohen said, if I knew where the good songs came from, I'd go there more often. And that's how I
the
feel.
river, right?
Like,
Yeah.
it's like sometimes you don't write for a month and you sit down and something comes out that's just really great. And so it is really unpredictable. And that's why you kind of can't be like a vampire about other art or something. Like, you're like consuming it because you're trying to, like, it has to be because you get actually turned on by something. You get actually excited because you see it and you're like, whoa, that actually affected me. Not because, like, I have friends who are like, oh, I want to do this because it reminds me of this thing I'm trying to make, or I want to do, and it's like, well, that's not, then what are you doing?
That
Then
doesn't
it's like
come from a place of love.
yeah, then it comes from you're a vampire.
Then it
You're
comes
like,
from like a place of ambition or something, and nothing. I mean, I definitely get locked down if I start thinking like, "Ooh, I have to do this because,
Yep.
I don't have any. I don't have a." It's like if I go to, I'm thinking, "Oh, we've written way too many ballads. I'm going to go and write a root song. I'm going to fucking end up with a ballad. I don't know why."
Yep. Or your not ballad song is gonna suck.
We have one song that I wrote kind of in that zone, and we finished it, and Alex said, "Can you put that entire track in that song in the trash and then press empty trash?" And I said, "Yeah."
Ouch.
I took it. I
It was
totally
our
agreed.
song.
We
You know?
worked on it together. Yeah, yeah.
We worked on it a lot. I slaved over that
We
song. Like,
tried. We really tried.
guitars, I tried every style of everything.
We did it a bunch of different ways, and I
not a
thought
bad
this
song.
is
It
the
just wasn't
one.
good enough.
I thought this is the golden child. This is the one. And then of course it was like, this is a lost cause.
Now, I've interviewed songwriters who have probably been songwriters longer than you've been alive. I mean, who have been like 40 or 50 years, and these people tell me they will unearth stuff that they did start to
Yeah.
write 25, 30 years ago, but but just for that, that feeling of, nah, maybe it'll eventually come back to me. But are you willing to do that, or you just want to just say, fuck that, I'm not touching that ever again?
Well, we
I
didn't
noticed
empty trash. It's somewhere, Alex. Traffic is somewhere.
not anymore. I went in like like with Nixon, and I just cleared out all the files. No, I honestly noticed that sometimes the song, you're like, this is the song in the moment. You take a
You
month
did the
away from it,
18 minutes of Watergate.
you're like, this song sucks. Yeah, 18 minutes of Watergate.
You Alice's restauranted it.
I had to. But sometimes, there's a song that you go like, oh, that was nice. And you move on, and then you hear it and you're like, that is a great song. And then sometimes the one you're excited about that you're working on, to me, it's all about like, if you're pushing on a song, sometimes that unlocks the freedom thing. But
it's like baseball players that grip the bat too tight, they can't hit the ball.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I always struggle with the ritual, right? Like with the ritual, it's if I'm too ritualistic and I'm holding on too tight, then it my thought process ends up being, well, I can't write now because I'm not in that chair or that room, or I don't have those things with me. Excuse me. But I feel like that's what happens when you grip too tight, isn't it? It's for me at least. It's, oh, I can't write now because I don't have my favorite pen, or this is not
Right.
the right time of day. That's always
Yeah.
my fear about making it
Even
too
though
much of
like
a
Harry
ritual.
Potter was written on napkins in a deli or something,
Yeah.
you know?
But to be fair, not to throw a wrench in that, but also sometimes it's not true. Sometimes the one that you really work really hard on, like Nat's song "I Can't Hurt You Anymore," is something when you really jam over it, it's great and it's better
Well,
than others. So
I
there
have an
isn't really any
interesting
rhyme or
oh,
reason.
I have an interesting story with "I Can't Hurt You Anymore," which is that I went through a breakup and I'd written a bunch of songs while I was in this really kind of heartbroken place that were not very good. And then I kind of felt this feeling of like, whoa, I'm getting over it. I'm kind of getting over it. I'm moving on. And I got COVID and I was in a hotel room. And then this heartbreaking song that felt like it did represent the feeling that I was going through sort of just flowed out in a way, which is interesting that like you would think it's like those people that think they need to be, miserable in order to make anything and I think the only thing that maybe misery can help with is like you just there's a lack of like self-consciousness or something because but in
That's
general
true.
I don't think misery is really what
Yeah,
leads to
sometimes you have
people
to be
making,
like a
at least for
journalist
me.
versus like it's a diary. Like you can't, sometimes you have to be like
Yeah, that's such a
like you
good
have to
way
be
to say
like
it.
a journalist on your feelings, and when you do that, stuff is a lot better. But that doesn't mean that it's not worth. I feel like it's also not that like your first draft is the right thing. Or that
Also, I
there's
like the
yeah.
idea. Oh, sorry. I like the idea also because we're actors. At least for me, I like the idea. Also, sometimes I can kind of slip into the character. It's like if you're writing dialogue, but a lot of times a song is dialogue. A lot of times a song is like a message to somebody or a monologue to somebody, or it's a conversation or something. And sometimes if I can fall into the characters' voices, then I don't know. It's like almost I get take. I'm not in it as much as opposed to let me cut open my heart and show you how I feel. Sometimes that is a little
Doesn't work.
indulgent. Yeah, it like almost feels like it's more for me. But sometimes if you can kind of take on the character, you can actually get to something that's about yourself that you don't even know, that you don't even consciously know or intellectually know. Because that's to me artists that are tapping into something deep within themselves. It's like when they ask Bob Dylan about his songs, he's like, I don't know. And I really
Wrote it in the
believe that
back
he
of a
doesn't
taxi
know.
cab.
Yeah. And he's like connecting to something inside him or something that's out in the ether that he's just staying open to. So he's not the one to analyze his songs.
Alex, let me ask you this. And Nat alluded to this a few minutes ago, but I had Lucinda Williams on the podcast about a month ago.
Say that one
And
more time. You had
I
to.
had Lucinda Williams on the
Oh,
podcast about a
great.
month ago, and I feel like everything she was saying was just like a treasure trove of wisdom. And she said
Oh,
something so
Wow.
interesting. She said that she has to be content to write about misery and sad things, that she can never, but it's not that she has to be out of it. She actually has to be
right.
content, which is different from like a
A
steady
voyeur. Yeah.
yeah, she has to actually
Yeah.
be happy, and I thought it
Yeah.
was so
Yeah.
interesting
That's
because
beautiful.
yeah, for me, I feel like, I don't know, like, that makes sense, but I need to be a little bit in that emotion. So, Alex, I'd love to get your take on that first, like, can you do that, or do you need to be more in that emotional space to be able to write about it?
Honestly, there's no I wish I had more authority over what works for me, but I really don't. And sometimes I need to be feeling okay to write a really dark song. Sometimes I really need to be in it. Like I wrote that song Backup Plan on our album, really in it. Like I really didn't there was no two ways about it. I was at the I was at the pit of despair for me. Um and luckily, you know what I think it is? I think you have to be feeding yourself with a lot of good whatever, like artistic like nutrients. Like you have to be either like reading good stuff or watching a good movie or stuff that's honest, a lot of shit and that you like. But and I think I was, I was reading a lot of really good stuff and whatever. So in that misery, I could kind of articulate it a little better. But there are songs where you got to write yourself out of the hole and you got to write a thing. I don't think that there's any rules for me. Like I don't have to be one way or the other. I just have to be honest and I know that I can't suffocate something
And like relaxed.
yeah, I have to be relaxed. I have to be kind of like relax almost like relaxed but like beyond relaxed. Like I have to be like resigned to like, fuck it. There's some version of that. Like even like, okay, here it comes.
Wasn't it Smokey Robinson, that story that I just heard? Alex, did you show me that? Where I think it was Smokey Robinson. He's talking about how like he was at the Hit Factory and they were like just beating their heads against a wall for 3 days. And then they gave up and he was driving and he was stuck in traffic and he just started singing My
Well, it's like
Girl
a math
or
problem. They
something
say
like
that
that. One of those songs.
we're idiots at math, so this is a bad analogy, but they say that when like if you like they used to say like move on from the question because while you're moving on, your brain is thinking about how to answer. Like your brain is still working. So I think that it's like you bang your head against the wall and maybe it's just the feeling of, like
Yeah.
resignation can be really powerful.
So I have a great story about that. I read an article in the New Yorker by Louis Menand. This is probably 10 or 15 years ago. He writes a lot about process. And he said what he'll do, I love this, is he will put in his foyer a bunch of note cards with ideas he wants to write about. He will never, ever sit and stare at those note cards, but he walks by that foyer 100 times a day. Each time he
Genius.
walks by, he'll stare at it. 99% of the time, nothing happens. But that 1%, it's like that eureka moment. But if he sat and stared at it, nothing
Genius.
would happen. I think that's what we're talking about, isn't it?
Genius. It's putting the the homework under, the test answers under your pillow at night and sleeping, and then you wake up and and somehow it's
Yep.
like, because your hands are kind of touching the thing under the pillow once in a while, and you're like your subconscious is. I think we are really. I mean, I definitely am blown away by how little I know about my subconscious and like how much that plays into all of creativity. And I remember my therapist talking about like, God, I just feel for artists. It must make them so crazy because whatever thing that they have to tap into, they have no idea how they got there. It's like
I know all you can rely on is like skill, which is like this much,
like 5%.
5%.
Yeah.
There was a book I read. I have to find it because it's going to drive me crazy. And the author, hold on, let me find it. It was a novel, an amazing novel. The main character in the book is an author, and what he does is, and this is a horrible idea, is he was told to tape a pencil to his finger. This is the character in the book. So when he goes to sleep and he gets those eureka moments in the middle of the night, because his therapist told him that with every tenth of a second, that idea escapes your unconscious and it's gone. So he tapes the pencil to his finger so that in the middle of the night he can immediately write.
Wow,
that's amazing. It kind of reminds you of when you
bad for sleep.
When you write down your dreams in the morning and you're like, oh my God, and it's so powerful and evocative to you. And then you go back to sleep and you wake up 3 hours later and you read it and you're like, I went to a restaurant and it was on fire. I'm like, what? Why was I?
Oh, what?
But in a dream, it was so evocative and intense. Yeah, but it's like, what?
But if you ever, there's a study, and I've cited this study, but it's been a while, and I always forget the name of the state that you're in. But Salvador Dali used to do this thing where, and there's an article about it. It's been replicated in the lab, and there's a picture of him. What he would do is he was always getting ideas when he was in that state when you're not asleep but you're not awake. It's that moment.
Yeah.
Right
that
in the middle.
half. Yeah,
Paul
yeah.
Thomas Anderson says that too.
Yes. So it's hilarious. There's a picture of him, and he's sitting in this uncomfortable chair, and he's got his hand outstretched, and
He's
there's a
like,
skeleton key in his hand. And when he drifts off, he drops the key. It makes a noise. He wakes up and he starts to paint.
Amazing.
And they've replicated that in the lab with creative types. And they found that in that
Wow.
moment, not when you're awake, not when you're asleep, that's when we have our ideas.
whoa, I do
So
that on set. That's so weird.
has it ever happened to you? Like, do you
Yeah,
know,
I'll
when you're,
sleep in a chair. I don't go to my drill. I'll try to like nap my chair because I like right when you come out. That's so interesting.
Robert
yeah,
Duvall used to say that he would like sleep between every single setup because then he felt like when he woke up, he was less self conscious or something.
yeah, it's fascinating stuff. So how
I
does, and
love
I
in
try,
Portrait of the Art. Sorry, go on.
no, go ahead, please.
Portrait of the Artist as a young man. I love how that narrator is so like bipolar in his relation to if he's a good artist or not. Like the first half he's like, life is miserable. I'm in this school. I hate all these kids. And then he's like, I'm an artist. And there's that part in the middle where he's like walking by the lake and everyone's like, wow, you're chipper today. He's like, well, I'm writing my book. And then he sits down to do it again. And he's like, shit, what the fuck happened? Like, and so the whole thing, that's why I love that book is it's so like, it's the most bipolar thing,
Accurate.
and he's young, and he's really young. He's like 19 in it, or starting 20, because he's at boarding school, and just like watching him like go in and out of thinking he's a genius, and then that he's nothing, and then I just really that's why I love that book so much.
Is there any way, I've never done this before, is there any way that we can somehow tie James Joyce into influencing you as a songwriter?
Yeah, yeah, we can do it. We can do it. Come on,
We
Nat.
run,
I'm sending you in. Sending you
bro.
in,
This
coach. You're
is
like, I'm
you.
not touching that.
Yeah, I'm not touching that
You
with a
made your
10-foot
bed.
pole. You
By the way,
brought
I
up
Here's what
found
I'll
a
James
book.
say.
Joyce.
I was reading it while I wrote Backup Plan. So
Really? Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
or I just
um,
finished it, and I had just finished it on the isle. I was in Hydra, and I just finished it, and then we flew to Athens. Then I wrote it that night.
the
So
book is called
Our album
Homeland.
is like James Joyce, but better, is sort of what he's saying.
yeah,
Sort of
exactly.
like
James Joyce.
it's like a
James
better, it's
Joyce
like a
meets
more
Diplo.
well written James Joyce.
James Joyce meets Diplo.
The book is called Homeland Elegies by Ayad Akhtar.
Okay, writing it down.
Yeah.
Writing it down.
Damn, that's a
Can you
lot of
say it again?
fucking consonants, bro.
Yes.
What?
Homeland Elegies
Elegies.
by
Okay,
Ayad Akhtar.
cool.
And the last name is yeah, it's like Akhtar. Homeland Elegies. Yeah. Um so how let me preface this by telling you a story that I'm curious as to get your response on this. So when Mark Morton and I were writing his memoir, the book centers on a lot of the book is about, I mean, Mark's in recovery now, but his kind of addiction was he spiraled into addiction after the death of his newborn daughter, who actually died in his arms, like day old, like actually died in his
Yeah.
arms in the hospital. And I remember when he sent me the chapter, he said one thing to me. He said, "Don't touch this." He said, "It's too emotional. I want you to edit it for grammar, but do nothing else. It's too raw." So when you are writing, when one of you is writing and the other one is giving that kind of feedback, do you ever think about the stuff that's really too raw, too emotional? There's a reason why it was like that, and you shouldn't be touching it.
Oh, that's such a beautiful question and such a great
Yeah,
story.
hard to answer.
Because he went through something so visceral that probably the other chapters you could bring a writerly, you know, feeling to it. But with that, he was like, you just need to leave it. Um, I know that when I played Alex Horse, because it was the first time I um, wrote about a childhood trauma that I experienced and how it affected me in later life. I know that my hands were shaking playing it for him. Um, but uh, that might be the closest to almost feeling like the first person, at least for me, the first person I showed was Alex, and that was the hardest. That was the biggest
Hurdle.
And after that, it just has gotten easier and easier. And now I kind of have I've almost playing it live recently and stuff. I've almost had a different relationship to it. But that first time, it was like what Alex, like showing somebody something that is almost too painful, almost like let's just put it on the record and let's not even fucking talk about it.
Well, I guess related to that, Alex, before I get your take on this, Nat, do you feel that the songs that come the quickest to you, the ones that happen in like 5 or 10 minutes, lightning in the bottle, do you feel, do you trust those, or are you suspicious? Like, it happens so quickly. Geez, I wonder, I wonder if it's good.
I trust those more than the other. I mean, there's probably a good healthy in between for me, where like you have the germ of an idea, and like for me, a lot of times I'll get a verse and a chorus, and I'll get a uh, first verse lyrics, and like a chorus idea, and get the melodies. And if that comes really easily, like Alex said earlier, sometimes I like to leave it and then come back. But if something is like really hard to hammer in, like it just doesn't feel like it's coming together,
Might
uh,
suck.
it might just be like I, it might be a like knock it over and start again sometimes. Yeah.
Alex, thoughts on that? Yeah, I guess the two-parter is
True.
the Yeah, go ahead.
I think that's true. But also, that's why it's so hard to talk about writing. And honestly, songwriting is a little different than writing in that, uh,
You mean like writing a
even
book?
script writing or whatever, like writing prose, like you have so much room to establish things and like to arrive at things. You can say, you walk into the thing and you sit on, when you're in doubt, you walk into the room and you sit on the couch or whatever. Songs are like fucking tough, like to really nail. You got these like clean little lines that you gotta nail. And so I think there isn't one right way to do it, but a general rule with all creativity, I think, is like we're saying, like it's some in between of you have to follow that lightning in a bottle, because there's no such thing as just easy. Like it should be easy. It's hard.
Inspiration and perspiration.
Inspiration and perspiration.
Yeah.
Like it has to be, the germ has to be easy. Like, you know, like I think that those songs that take a long time for people or whatever, I think that that's getting it over to the next level. But I think that it should never, if it's a struggle at the beginning, usually, then I don't know. I usually do kind of abandon those songs. If it's a struggle right at the top, you're like, well, then maybe, like, if it doesn't excite you anymore, it's not homework. You don't have to do it. Fucking dump it. And then if it gnaws at you, then maybe there is something to it. But I think that, you have to be ready. You have to be ready to follow any idea, and you have to be ready to abandon any idea, kind of. And it's hard when there's two people, because we're both like, abandon that, don't abandon that. That's like the push and pull. But that's the joy
But we
of it
both
too.
bring different things to the table.
Exactly. Exactly.
I interviewed the. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna add that I think that's, I don't know what it's like writing prose, and it seems like starting completely with a blank page seems so hard, and I think there is something about having an instrument that kind of reminds me of acting, where it's like you have a script and you let sometimes you let the instrument and the melody play you, and it kind of like comes out. That's why sometimes I think writing songs and acting are way more similar than other creative things I do. Like they they have a lot. There's a lot of overlap. A lot of it, I think, is just getting out of your own way.
I interviewed the writer Anthony Doerr. Anthony Doerr wrote All the Light We Cannot See. Um, and I asked him about writer's block, and he's a novelist, and he said, I don't believe in writer's block. He said, writer's
No
block
roofer's block. Did he say that?
What's that?
There's no roofer's block.
That's true.
I
He
love
said,
that line.
writer's block is a failure of courage.
Mm.
And I kind of like went, ooh, that's good, right? He said, you can't, and I think this is what we're talking about. We all have something to say. And his whole thing is everyone's got something to say. You're not that precious. Don't be afraid to write the bad stuff. Um,
Right.
that's always stuck with me. Like writer's block is a failure of courage. It's not,
So
and for
true.
me, I would tell my students, it's not that you don't know what to say. It's that you don't, like for me, it's not that I don't know what to say. It's that I don't know where to begin. And so, like, I will rarely start anything at the beginning.
Mm.
Um, I'll just start wherever I feel like I have the most to say, and then that momentum keeps me going.
It's amazing. Yeah,
Love that.
I love that so much. I also like the idea that, I think we read like finished products, and I think, think about somebody like Raymond Carver, who's a huge inspiration for me in terms of everything, but in writing, I feel like you don't know how many sentences he wrote and then took out, because people are like, because, sometimes you read somebody that's like biting off of Raymond Carver, and you're like, there's no there because his everything he writes, like especially like his short stories and things, or somebody like Hemingway, like all
It
there's
appears
so
stream
much
of
neutral.
consciousness.
It appears like it's easy, like any really great singer, or they make it seem easy, but like you don't know. But back, usually anytime I've met really great artists or gotten to spend time with them, they are just constantly doing bad work and banging their head against the wall. I've never met anybody that just sits down and makes something genius. It's usually like a fight, to get there. And I think, um, you know, you, you see like these greats, and sometimes you watch documentaries about people who are great, like a documentary about a great writer, a documentary about, and they make it seem like, you know, they're a magician or something. And that to me is almost anti-art. It's like there's a lot of the failure is part of it. It's like the Michael Jordan thing. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. He missed more shots than any
Wayne
other player.
Gretzky.
What?
That's Wayne Gretzky who said that.
I'm also fascinated by the role of movement to my process. I always get great
Ooh,
ideas when I am walking, running. And also, my favorite quote that I always give in these interviews is that Agatha Christie said the best time to write a book is when you're doing the dishes. So
genius.
our, our
She's
ideas come
fucking
to us.
genius. I never heard
That's
that.
genius.
Oh, really? Yeah. So
Fucking never heard that. That's genius as
but
fuck.
I've had everyone from, I remember Keb Mo told me that he gets great ideas when he's folding laundry. And I've heard vacuuming, Mark Morton said gardening's a great time when your brains are engaged in monotonous activities. That's when the eureka moments happen. They never happen. There was an article in the Washington Post about why we get our best ideas in the shower. And and I think that's what we're talking about. Like if I sit down and I say to myself, I'm going to have a great idea, it's never going to happen. It's happening when I'm driving and doing things unrelated. So, Alex
Driving.
yeah. I mean,
Drive.
Alex, start with you. Does that happen a lot with,
Not
y-
driving because I don't drive because I'm a New Yorker, but um, I get ideas like, how to run this red light. No, my girlfriend thinks that I always get my most feverish drive to write a song whenever we're late for dinner with one of her friends. She always feels like I'm rushing to the piano and I'm like, I gotta finish the song. And she's like, you wait until we're fucking 20 minutes late for a double date to write your masterpiece. This song, Whole Other Life, that I wrote in our Brooklyn apartment. And it was like a joke. Like every time we had to go down to like because they're in the same apartment complex as her brother. Like every time we had like dinner plans with her brother and her sister-in-law. Suddenly I was just like, I'll be there in 1 second. And I think I work best when I'm supposed to be doing something else. Is my That's my bread and butter. I need someone to pretend that I have stuff to do. Because if you have nothing but time, nothing's coming out of me.
When they say, "Oh, you got to go up to a cabin for 2 months to write songs," it's like, honestly, that
I
might
would
not
write
work
no
for me. I
songs.
I I I started writing when I was in school instead of doing homework. Like it was a way to
Yep.
get out of, for me, doing any schoolwork, is that I would write lyrics and write poems and stuff in the back of the class. And I had this amazing friend who's like a violinist and composer and stuff, and he had sheet music in the back, and I would write lyrics and stuff, and then we would like trade our things, and and it was just a way to not have to do schoolwork, and in a certain way that is so freeing because you're not thinking, I'm gonna write the great song, I'm gonna write the great book, I mean, for me that shuts me down immediately.
Alex, both of you probably are my kindred spirit because I'm absolutely on board with this. So this is what I do. I will create a false deadline for myself. Okay. So a false deadline is not, oh, start the stopwatch. How much can I get done in an hour? A false deadline, and I do the same thing. A false deadline is my wife says we're going out at 6, I'll start writing at 5. Okay. Because I have to stop.
Or start
And
writing at 6.
right, starting 6. So
But it's
I
not good for your relationship, trust me. But it's amazing for your writing. Amazing.
yes. And here's how I learned that about myself. So we live in DC and I go to New York a couple times a month for work, and I'll get more done on that Acela for 2.5 hours than if I sat here for 2.5 hours because I have to put my laptop away. We pull into Penn Station. And once I learned that about myself, it was like oddly comforting. It's like, it's going to get done because I have no choice.
Oh, what is that though? What is that in you? Is it because you're I, I
It's
well,
like
yeah,
eye floaters, like how you have eye floaters, and like if you look at them directly, the eye floaters go away. It's like you
yeah.
have to kind of work with. It's also like I've noticed I have this cat. I just got this new cat, and I swear to God, this motherfucker. If I just pretend that I'm not, that I don't want him to sit on my lap, like actor, like I'm like, okay, I don't want him to sit on my lap. He's in my lap, and then the second I'm like looking at him, or whatever, he's like running away and causing ruckus, and it's like you kind of have to trick yourself. You have to like rebel against yourself.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. I mean, if you said you have a half hour to write and I have nothing to do after that half hour, I'll get nothing done. But if you say we're leaving in a half hour, I will get a shitload done. And like I said, it's comforting because it's like, oh, it's going to happen because I have to stop and I have no choice. And that's the trick I play to get myself to write faster.
When we went on the Zane Lowe show in September, and we didn't really have a real release date for the album. I mean, the label really wanted us to get it out in January, and I so I thought that we were probably putting it out in January, and on live radio, I said, "Yeah, album's coming out in January," and the label, everyone went, even Alex, everybody, and I was like, "Oh God!"
I just started laughing.
And then what I realized was we ended up we knew, okay, that means we only have a couple months to finish this album. We had tons of other stuff going on with touring and acting, did all this shit. And we went into hyperdrive mode. And it was like, suddenly I was seeing the album in a completely different way. And like we started cutting songs, and then we had a bunch of new songs that we did and mixing and matching. And it was something about giving us that, total honest, genuinely it was an accident, but giving us that okay, our feet are to the fire, because we had started making the album in 2024 and we kept pushing it and being like, it's not totally right. And then when it was like, okay, we have a release date, now we're gonna kill it. And there's something that energy is really exciting, honestly. Yeah.
All right, a couple more questions. Alex, when it comes to lyrics, are you a pen and paper person or a phone/computer person?
Phone/computer. If I've ever tried to do a pen and paper lyric thing, somehow words like thou and this and my long misspelled Victorian bullshit stuff. For me, it's always horseshit. Except kind of the same thing, like kind of the same thing you're saying is whatever. When I was in Paris, I was having a really I was there, I was in between, I was filming, and I literally my phone was dead. So I wrote some stuff, and that will kind of work like on the back of a card. I wrote on the back of a card, and I one of the songs that it's not on the album, but I started but we recorded it, and it's a good song. So it's like I started if it's like that, it works. But I swear, the second you get that spiral notebook with the perfect, you get it at the store, the Liechtenstein, whatever notebooks those are, you get it at the store and it's green and has a perfect. You open it and I'm drawn, like random
know what you're gonna
needles
say.
and penises.
I knew that's what you were gonna say.
Nat, how about you? Are you a pen and paper or a computer person?
When I was a kid, I used to write on pen and paper, and for some reason, I'd always write all my lyrics in a circle, and then put the chord. I just put like E, F, B flat, and then stuff like that, and all the lyrics would go in a circle. And I wish that I wrote longhand, just because there is something that sometimes feels like you have to be a little bit more definitive. Um, but my handwriting is so bad. I write a lot of ideas on paper, and I have
Damn.
tons of paper scattered around my room of things but I always bring it to my phone.
Oh.
I actually got my computer stolen a couple months ago, and I was so freaked out. But this is with all the horror of technology, the magic is that it was all on my phone, so I didn't lose anything.
I feel like the advantage, my handwriting's awful too, but I feel like if I look at something I've written with pen and paper, I see myself on that page and it's easier to connect
Yeah.
with it. But on a phone, that's not me, it's anyone. So I don't know. That's the way I feel is my handwriting's awful, but I feel like, oh wow, that I'm looking at something I wrote right here. It's like, oh, that's me. I see my personality, my emotional state
Right.
when I wrote that.
Did you write your books by hand?
Oh no. No way.
You write
I
little
mean,
ideas that spark things.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it was all computer.
I have
But
also absolutely no relationship with pen and paper because in school it got to a point where like the teachers were like, we don't know what the hell he's writing, so we might as well use your computer. And I guess a lot of people do that, but I had to get like special permission slips in school to use the computer and stuff. So I think I have a personal relationship with the way that I write on technology. Like it does feel personal to me because unfortunately I'm a product of
But I
the
will say, Alex, when
technological
you
generation.
handed me that book, when you handed me the James Baldwin book over Christmas, you had written a ton of stuff in the
Yeah, I write in all the
underline.
books and all my scripts.
Yeah.
before we talk about books, I'm going to give you one more quote from an author. This is my favorite quote, E.L. Doctorow. I want to get your take on this as a writer slash songwriter. This is the one that blows songwriters away, by the way, this quote by E.L. Doctorow. Writing is like driving at night in the fog. You can only see as far as the headlights, but you can make the whole trip that way.
Whoa.
Right?
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, and I subscribe to that. I don't think I have any right knowing what something is supposed to look like when I start to write. That is
Totally. It's not up to you.
yeah. So, Nat, do you
Yep.
subscribe to that? Like you need to just see as far as the headlights.
1,000%. I think it kind of goes into the same category with that Martha Graham quote where she says that, it's not our job to
Doesn't
even
belong
know,
to you.
to judge what we're doing or even know what we're doing. And it's like if you go into, for me, writing a song and saying, I'm going to write a song about this. I get out and I think this is what I'm dealing with. Then usually I I finish the song and I go, and somebody goes, "Oh, this is obviously about this," and I'm like, "Oh my God, you're right," because we don't even know you usually, if you're connecting to something deep, it's usually not the thing that, for me, the best writing usually doesn't come to the thing that's at the surface. It's not like, God, I'm so angry because this person did this to me, I'm going to go write a song. It's usually like there's some secret lingering that can only come out through the writing. But that is a brilliant way of putting it, because I also feel like sometimes when I'm writing a song, the less I know, the better. Like the less that I'm intellectually understanding what I'm trying to do, the better. And the songs where I have too much of a
hand in it.
too much of a direction or a point tend to be the most basic and tend to there's
Either
some
the clunkiest.
isn't there some study where it says that like things that are abstract ideas tend to emotionally but potentially I think it's like things that are abstract tend to hit us emotionally because we make our own connections, whereas if it's
Yeah.
too obviously, it's like, why? But I love that quote. That's amazing. It's a beautiful quote.
So we'll talk about books, at least talk about writing. And I think you are the first songwriter to mention Sam Shepard. So I would love to talk more about Sam Shepard or just
I would
your
love that.
literary influences, whether they inspire you as a songwriter or not. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious the songwriters who've been around the longest read.
Right.
And it's not complicated. I mean, if you don't read, your language becomes stale. You use the
Right.
same words over and over again. So, but let's talk about Sam Shepard first. Is there any connection at all? Maybe there isn't, to you as a songwriter, and tell me why. You don't have to convince me, but tell me why Sam Shepard is so amazing.
So to me, one thing that Sam Shepard does is he, in something like Fool for Love, he takes, you know, a relationship that we've all experienced, which is a toxic romantic relationship that's codependent and painful, and he takes it to the extreme. He makes them be half brother and half sister, and then he also puts their father on the side of the stage as almost like a ghost. But somehow, through that insane concept, in my opinion, you get the most realistic dysfunctional relationship I've ever seen in a play. And I love like Danny and the Deep Blue Sea and things that are a little bit more, you know, realistic. In the speech that Vince gives at the end about being, that whenever he looks into a mirror, basically, or I think he's talking about the car window or something, that he sees his father, he sees his father's father, and that we're all haunted by, our family, and especially if you're a man, you're haunted by your father, and that actually, I did that play, and Sam Shepard kind of came into my life as an artist and then as a person at a time where, my dad ended up surviving, but our dad was dying of cancer, we thought, and for like 2 years, and there was something about the way that was confronting in terms of who have I become and am I him, and um, what does it mean to grow up outside of this family unit, and there was something about Sam's, I guess his way of writing fathers and sons that were, only second. You said you have Tennessee Williams, only second to some of those, and uh, like Brick, and oh my god, or Arthur Miller, like Death of a Salesman, that dad, father, son. Oh my god,
All My Sons, I
all my
mean,
sons. Oh, pretty
really,
heartbreaking. They really,
yeah.
they really went deep on those father son relationships in those
Long
plays.
Day's Journey into Night. I mean,
Long Day's Journey. I've always wanted to do that play and play Edmund. Right, that's the older brother.
yes, I
Yeah,
believe.
I always wanted to play the older brother who's like who's basic. I mean, they're all alcoholics, but he's like, that speech where he's like, I've just turned into this bitter, jaded, jealous, that's a really great play. God.
So what other types of literature do you favor? A certain genre, author? Are you a genre person or a writer person?
I'm definitely a writer person. Um, I would love to be a genre person. I think when I was younger, I was, but at about 12, I got really into J.D. Salinger, like Nine Stories, um, and he became like the first writer that I read all the books of, and I would say Franny and Zoe is like, you know, the book at 14 where I was like, oh, this is even more like a real family than watching a movie. Like I love movies. I love movies and books about the most about family and family dynamics. And I was like, wow, this feels even more real than like watching Ordinary People or something. There's something that feels like you're just dropped into that world. Um, and then different, I got really into Raymond Carver as a writer, and I got really into like Mary Oliver, and then, you know, uh, Alex and I have gone through all these different phases of poetry, and he got me really into like the beat poets when we were like teenagers and stuff. And it's funny too because it's all the stuff my dad was into, like Ferlinghetti and all those people. Um, but now I don't really go back to that stuff quite as much, like that beat poet generation. But who are the people that inspire you?
I am not a writer
Oh,
person.
more
My
of a genre.
initial thought after I finish a book is I want to get another voice in my head.
Mm.
So I'm not a writer person. I honestly just I will look at book review websites and say, does that sound good? And is it getting well received? And that's how I do it. But I'm not, it's funny. That's typically what I do. It's let me get as many voices in my head as I can.
I love that. I feel like have this weird obsessive nature where if I love a band, then I'll listen to all their albums over and over again and nobody else. And then it does feel like gum that's lost its flavor, and you have to kind of take some time off of it and then come back. But the thing about what I understand, what I totally get is like, especially for reading, it takes you a longer time to read it. So if you're about to write a book, I could totally understand why you'd want to just hear different voices. So it's not like you're writing as that person. And earlier you said something about being derivative, and I do feel like for me that can be a trap, because I fall in love with things so much, and I'll like fall in love with a writer, and then suddenly I'm writing just like them, you know. And like I have to be careful of not being a mimic, you know?
And that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. You can find all of the old episodes on all major streaming platforms and probably some minor ones as well. You can also find them on the Songwriters on Process website. I started the site back in 2011, so that means there are hundreds upon hundreds of interviews with some of the world's best songwriters. So take a deep dive into some of those episodes. They are all great. Of course, I'm biased. Also, shameless plug. My book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, that is me, is out now on Hachette Books and in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend of mine. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God. And so we collaborated on his memoir. I'm biased, but that's a damn good book. Again, it is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, go to the Songwriters on Process website. You can fill out a handy contact form and it'll get to me that way. You can also email me at ben@songwritersonprocess.com. I'm all ears. Send me your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, people you want me to interview. I get great suggestions all the time. I can't respond to all of the emails because I get a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And let me know your thoughts. If you have ideas for people you want me to interview, there's your chance. And with that, I am out. See you next time.